Hello and welcome to AT Auto. Today we are talking to Chief Design Officer of Tata Motors, Mr. Martin Uhlarik. He will take us through the key elements of the new Tata Nexon and what has changed in the bestseller compact SUV. Welcome to the Martin.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, take us through the key changes about Tata Nexon, how being the bestseller, what kind of pressures you have to retain the old character and put the new elements in.
Yeah, so when we designed it, we wanted to make this car much more sharper, crisper, more quality, which means a technical leader, really a high tech SUV.
Right.
So when we designed it, we redesigned the rear completely. We redesigned the front, so it's more
Okay.
than a traditional
Right.
facelift.
Right.
So we made a new bonnet, new
Right.
fenders, new headlamps.
Right.
All of it was being driven by
Right.
making the car really like an avatar for
Avatar.
or an innovative customer.
Right. Right. Uh, Martin, there is a lot of changes in the interiors as well as we can see, and take us through what kind of changes you have done in terms of making it more aspirational as well as sustainable.
Yeah, so when we looked at the Nexon, obviously the car has evolved over the 10-year design development, and we didn't want it to come across as an analog product. It's still capable as a SUV, but at the same time, the interface, the customer has really changed. So the whole landscape of the interior in terms of how you interface the UX, UI, and then how do you look at that. So the steering wheel, for instance, completely new, very unique approach.
Right.
It's more like a games console
Console.
now, and at the same time, we really wanted to improve the quality. So everything is very fine and finessed, and of course, also materials, not just colors and fabrics and stuff like that, but the plastics, how they're done. Everything is very sharp, very well fitted, and it adds a certain level of premiumness, and then of course quality.
Right. You mentioned about the two-spoke wheel.
Yeah.
Take us to the story behind it and how it came up to your mind that we should have a two-spoke steering wheel, that too in a compact SUV, and that too the illuminating logo, going away to the traditional
Yes.
metal logos that we have been seeing in the cars
Well, we've
since
seen the
last time.
trend in terms of logos. We've seen the trend that logos are becoming flatter because they're becoming a platform for a digital content. So it doesn't matter if it's an automotive company or any company, they've redesigned their logos to be flat. So they're no longer 3D. When you look at the 3D logo, in many ways it comes across as aged now. It looks like an analog industrial product, whereas
Right.
we're now in a digital
Right.
economy and a digital society.
Right.
So our designer, when we just started a simple
Right.
design a new steering wheel, the
Right.
designer in question did a whole image board of games consoles,
Wow.
PlayStation, Xbox, whatnot, and he said this is the console of how you interface with all of these screens, how all the infotainment, the climate control, and so forth. And he goes, why don't we approach it like that? And of course, immediately the product shifts in personality by making this different approach. It's no longer a mechanical product.
And then how did you fit in the airbag?
Well, that was the challenge. I mean, we came up with this great idea, great sketch, and then of course the first thing was like, how does this work?
Right.
And you want an illuminated logo as well, so it's backlit. So yes, we worked very hard and long. I mean, the better part of 2 years. So the designer who got his theme picked, the guy who I mentioned,
Right.
I mean, he won the lottery, but also he was condemned to 2 years working with the suppliers and the engineers to make it work.
Right.
But in the end, they
Made it
got the
happen,
result.
yeah. Coming back to again interiors and the dashboard specifically, it's really minimalistic. I could only see two buttons here. I think those
That's
are for
right.
the AC vents. Really minimalistic, two screens, and what is the approach there? And do we see this being carrying forward to the future cars as well? And also, there has been a saying that screens tend to distract you.
Yes.
What is your view on that? And buttons are more intuitive to use.
Yes, twofold. First of all, this philosophical approach, design-wise, where we're like reducing visual clutter,
Right.
Reducing the buttons. I think customers are more now attuned to basically a capacitive or a touch screen, thing. So certain functions are mechanical. So we still have certain mechanical switches, which are, from a safety point of view, important.
Right.
Then other ones are the ones which are secondary. Those ones are now basically decontented visually, The other thing is it's a huge cost saving
Right.
for us, so we have more money to spend in other areas. And you've seen, I mean, we previewed this sort of approach in terms of the touch points on the Curve, on the
Right.
Sierra. And so that's very much like our interior design
Right.
philosophy. Then when it comes to, our screens distracting, yes, I think you need to have just the right amount of screens
Right.
to communicate, whether it's information for the driver, speed, safety, range, things like that, or in the infotainment area, what
Right.
music, navigation, things like
Right.
that. But it shouldn't be completely distracting. I don't think we're going to be doing an end-to-end screen
Right.
IP, for
Right.
instance. And then you've seen with the Avinia, for instance, we reduced the screen considerably. So we actually think that the trend long term,
Right.
especially from a luxury premium point of view, is to almost decontent it. There are screens
Right.
there, but it's not screen centric.
Same sense.
So that information is
Right.
important, and you have
Right.
to communicate it. But
Right.
at the same time, it shouldn't be in your face, and it's
Right.
also becomes an arms race.
Right. And
So
also it's because the customer wants to have those digital experience of
that's right.
screens, phones,
Yeah,
laptops,
but at the
and
same
yeah,
time, how
in
much
the
is
car.
too much?
Yeah.
You know, I'm always telling my kids, get off the phone.
Right.
You're looking enough screen time. And so I think, just the right amount of information is the right balance. Of
Right.
course, whatever,
Right.
emboldens or entertains you, perfect. But then at
Right.
the same time, there's a
Right.
balance.
So we could see a lot of design elements in terms of the coloring of the seats and the. Could you take us through the persona strategy that Tata Motors is playing in terms of because going away with the variant, verticalized approach to the horizontal
That's
approach?
right. So, like as you mentioned, traditionally the trim levels were a vertical approach. So you had like high, medium, low.
Right.
If you bought the low, maybe that was your choice. Maybe that was what you could afford. Maybe that was enough for you, which is fine. But visually, they always came across as a sort of second class
Right.
communication. And so we said there shouldn't be a stigma. There shouldn't be a hierarchical
Right.
approach to trim levels. So we rotated it. We said it's horizontal, so it becomes a lifestyle choice. So we framed them with personas. So we've already done that with the Punch, and now with the next one, we're really taking it to the next level.
Okay.
So you pick pure, creative, fearless.
Fearless.
Which one is your avatar? Which one fits you the best? For instance, I'm very pure, so
Right.
that's the one I would pick.
Right.
But at the same time, you can buy tech packs. You can spec up the Pure. You can get
Right.
the larger screen. You can get the nice
Right.
wheels, and so forth. And then basically you configure the car to what works for you. And when you go on the configurator later on, when we have the car on the website, you can essentially design and curate the car yourself.
Right.
But there are certain controls. Make sure that all of them
Right.
come across. Once you configure it, it
Right.
all works from an aesthetic point
So.
of view. There's no oddball coming
Right.
out at the end.
So now the mathematical part comes in because Tata Motors earlier has at every 30-40,000 there was a new variant coming in.
That's
Now
right.
now you have put it horizontal, but customization is one part.
That's right.
So I don't know. You must have done the maths.
Yeah.
So what will be the total number of variants if we
Oh,
do
I
all the
think
matrix into the
I don't
put
know how many
multiplication?
how many combinations, but it's a lot. I know that there was a lot of nervous people
Yeah.
when this was being proposed.
Right.
But ultimately, you have to offer the customer what's correct and
Right.
what they need. And you can't really design one car for everybody
Right.
anymore. You have to
Right.
offer a menu of options and let people, curate it. If you look at our phones, whether you have a iPhone or a Samsung, ultimately the phone is pretty universal, but the apps, your screensaver, that's you.
Yeah.
That's what you need. Whether
Right.
it's your family or
Right.
your where you've been as a
Right.
screensaver,
Right.
or the selection of apps. The
Right.
same thing comes with the car.
Right.
The car is only the beginning of the platform. The
Right.
customer is ultimately the owner of the
Right.
vehicle, and they
Got it.
will curate it and make it for their own.
One last question on Tata Motors' overall design philosophy and the
Mm.
future of cars of Tata Motors. Uh, so this design would be carried forward to them, and how do we see the new Sierra and another cars,
Yeah.
even Curve?
So when we designed, for instance, the Nexon here, we designed all of them together. I mean, there's different teams working on different programs. So we're always checking how does this car line up with a Sierra, Curve, any of the portfolio, whether they're at the end of their life cycle or at the beginning of the life cycle. They have to fit the jigsaw puzzle from a brand point of view. At the same time, They have to stand on their own feet. Nexon is clearly a Nexon. So that's definitely one of the things we're very conscious of. And from a design point of view, this car fits in perfectly in terms of the portfolio, whether it's today in 2023 or also later when it'll be at the end of its life cycle. We know where it'll fit, and it won't be sort of, you won't say like, oh, this is the old one in
Right.
the family anymore,
Right.
or something like that. So you're constantly, I don't know, like, you know, putting the portfolio together
Right.
and making sure that it's consistent.
One last question to you. According to you, since seeing the EVs taking the front runner of
Mhm.
the overall vehicle sales, what is your view on the future of cars design? What kind of cars do we see in next 10 years? The evolution that will happen.
The thing is, definitely electrification is accelerating. It's a very different experience, driving experience dynamically. You know, I'm a generation which was a petrol head generation, where engine, sound, visceral, that was part of the experience. As we go into electrification, it's a very different driving experience. And of course, it influences the design, aerodynamics, efficiency, so forth. I'm always very conscious of that the cars don't become anonymous, that they become characterless, that they're very capable, very
Right.
competent, very
Right.
safe and
Right.
reliable, but that they lose the soul, you know. So I think the biggest challenge for us is offering products that, you know, have character, are exciting, have emotion, and then, like I said, are engaging.
Right.
That's the key, isn't it? Is engaging.
Right.
It has to be a positive
Right.
experience. So as we develop, you know, it could be any product.
While design is the one part, for EVs, making the sound, having those
Yeah,
feel.
but
So
it's a very unique. I mean, I'm driving, you know, EVs now as well, and I actually very much enjoy it. It's
okay,
very stress free. I find it very calming
calming.
and all this sort of stuff. But you can make an engaging EV. So watch this space. We've got some ideas, and we're going to make exciting products regardless.
Thank you so much for that.
All right, thanks.